Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest, absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today I have a really fascinating interview. You're going to love this guy. This is Brandon Gilbert. He is, well, how would I describe him? He has one of the leading herb companies in America, based in Kentucky. And his thing is adaptogens. He does all the ginseng, the aralias, the reishi, all those adaptogenic mushrooms. And this guy is, I think it would be safe to say, obsessed with purity and bioavailability of the ingredients. And I'm just going to hand it over. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Tell us how you got into herbs, how you especially got into what you're doing now, and sort of the philosophy of your company, and just everything you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I appreciate the introduction and for the invitation to be on your show. Appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully I can share some useful nuggets for the listeners here. So, yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in a small town in Indiana, which doesn't necessarily strike you as the hotbed for entrepreneurship-based, adaptogens and this kind of thing. But no one in my family is interested in this stuff. No one in my environment is interested in this stuff. So I was lucky enough to have the internet at a pretty young age, and that was kind of allowed me to see outside of the my immediate surroundings, let's say, and find other solutions for things. So, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of health problems, a lot of stuff stemming from kind of childhood and kind of emotional things that I dealt with, and then once I hit sort of end of high school, early college, like it was just really at a place to where I didn't really know what I want to do with my life. I felt very lost, felt very angry, depressed, just a whole host of kind of negative emotions and just kind of an absence of a solid identity. And I was just trying to figure out, like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be another way. There's got to be solutions. So, but I'm not finding it in my environment because the environment that was around me was just like, go to school, get a job, kids, take pharmaceuticals, rinse and repeat. I'm like, that's fine, there's a lot of value in that. But
Yeah.
I just remember like my first introduction, and I think one of my only experiences with kind of mainstream medical world is in like seventh or eighth grade or something. I had migraines all the time, or what I thought was migraines, what they thought were migraines. And I remember I went to the doctor, and I was very surprised that he spent like 5 minutes or less talking to me, and then basically just was like, "Here's a prescription. Try this. If it doesn't work, come back, and we'll try something else." And even at that young age, I remember thinking like, "What? That's it? I mean, this is all there is to it." And I think maybe I took that medication, whatever it was, maybe once. I didn't notice anything, and I was just kind of like, "This is stupid." So to me, that was kind of my introduction and kind of my exit from really buying into and believing in that system wholeheartedly. that kind of planted the seed of like, well, maybe there's something else, or maybe there has to be other options than just like talk to you for 2 minutes and like give you a pill and just hope for the best. And it's funny looking back, once I learned about health and these basic things. I mean, for one, I hated school. I didn't want to go there. I didn't like it. I was very upset about that, of course. But I mean, of course, still had to go. I would wake up, like 6 a.m., but I'd go to bed at 1 or 2 a.m. And then my breakfast was like Pop Tarts and Gatorade.
Yeah. Yep,
So
yep.
it's like I can't really imagine why I would have a headache in the morning. It's like, but to me that was an obvious thing that was just completely, like, oh, this is why.
Mhm.
But of course, like the doctor, was just like, here's the pill, whatever. So that was kind of planting the seed of like, oh, there's got to be, other options.
Right.
And then, part of my exploration was, when I was in high school, I smoked marijuana, occasionally a few times, and that kind of like started to give me a little bit of self-awareness. I think for whatever reason, it affected me differently than a lot of other people.
Yep.
I remember one of the first times I used that, I just was like, oh, wait, maybe I'm an asshole. Like I just had I had this realization of like, whoa, like I'm so angry that maybe that's having a negative impact on my family and the people around me. I was like, whoa. And just such like a trivial thing, but was such a life changing thing. So as I got a little bit older, I realized like, well, wait, that plant is an herb. Maybe there's other herbs that do other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and I grew up in an environment where like there's no herbs, and anything that's not from the doctor is like completely stupid and is, a fake and doesn't do anything. So that's what I believed, and I was like, well, wait, this plant did something. There's other plants that do something. And that led me to, getting into reishi and getting into, all the tonic herbs that I'm into now, because it's like, oh, wait, there's actually these whole category of herbs that you can take when you're already healthy and when you just want to support and maintain and improve your health over time. So then, doing a lot of reishi and the other mushrooms along with yoga and meditation and stuff really like changed my life and put me on a completely different trajectory, and put me in places and situations and life experiences that I never would have imagined that I would be in. And it's kind of like just those humble beginnings is really what I've built off of, because all of the major life decisions that I've made have all come from like basic things like that, or just trying to solve my own problem, or trying to figure out things for myself. And that's kind of that's still, honestly, it's still what I'm doing today, like 20 years later. It's hasn't really developed that much. But I feel like really I owe a lot of it to the tonic herbs to help me kind of balance out so that I can actually focus and actually get my brain ordered and structured so that I could have the possibility to start a business or teach classes or do lectures or write ebooks or do videos or do all these things that I never really would have been able to do previously, and I never could have really even imagined to be possible. Because, for my whole life, I was really shy, really withdrawn, and honestly kind of stupid. Like, I wasn't very sharp or clear mentally. For whatever reason, like, around the time that I started taking tonic herbs, like, things in my brain just started turning on, and kind of just has grown and evolved since then. And then, that led me to starting my first business in like 2006. And then eventually starting my company now, Hyperion Herbs, and started that in 2010. And really, I got on YouTube, I think 2008, 2009. YouTube and social media was really becoming a thing, and I was just making videos, sharing information and stuff that I accumulated over the years, telling people about herbs and mushrooms, and then kind of built a small following from that, and then launched the company from there, and just kind of like step by step have tried to figure it out and make the best of it on each step of the way.
Well, you've done a heck of a job. I mean, I've been aware of your company for quite a while. I've been aware of what you were doing. And what impresses me is the quality. So a lot of things you just said, really resonate with me. I mean, I had a very, and my listeners know this. You'll understand when you hear me say all of my relatives who have died in the last, I'll say 30 years, have died due to medical error or malpractice or just overprescription. I've had very bad experiences with doctors, but
Yeah.
you know, the I think you talked about how you said you felt kind of stupid growing up. The
Mhm.
modern American diet that's so heavy in sugar
Yeah.
and all the chemicals in our water. I mean, we're drinking water that's filled with fluoride, which was used by the Nazis to keep prisoners
Right.
docile. It's
Yeah.
it's no what would I say? It's no coincidence. So many things you said are will resonate with so many people. I mean, people are going
Right.
around with blood sugar issues. They're definitely going around the average now. We are far past
Mhm.
50% on kids being prescribed antidepressants,
Right.
ADHD medications. This shouldn't
Yeah.
be. I mean, the human
Exactly.
race has existed for tens of thousands of years without these pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
And when it comes to, the adaptogens, as I always explain it to people, adaptogens help you deal with stress at a very basic
Right.
level. And so, there's so many clinical studies. I mean, I remember in the 80s, I started my herbal internship at 15, and I worked in a vitamin shop, in the 90s and all that. And I had to know all this stuff. And it was very controversial to say like
Of
ginseng would do
course.
anything for anybody. That was illegal
Right.
actually to say it. But they had all these studies that said ginseng does nothing. And then you'd have a study that says ginseng is enhances the athletic performance or recovery from an illness. And
Yeah.
so the way I made sense of it and the way I explain it to people is, all right, say you've got three guys. All right, one of them is worn down, he's sick, he's tired, he's really at the bottom. Another is
Yep.
just a regular guy in between, and another is a high performance athlete. The guy at the bottom starts taking certain adaptogenic herbs, the Aurelias, the ginsengs, etc., and he's going to
Yeah.
feel more energy. He's going to be able to walk for maybe a mile. He may be able to walk for a half mile. Before he couldn't even do a quarter mile. He was
Yeah.
wheezing and gasping for air. The guy in the middle, maybe he doesn't get a lot. The high performance athlete suddenly sees he can lift a little more, or he can run a little further. The
Yep.
adaptogenic herbs kind of um, balance people out and help them reach their potential. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of truth to what you said there, and it reminds me of just an interesting point about herbs and products derived from herbs and studies based on those herbs. Which I think is a big caveat for a lot of the sciencey type stuff for herbs, is because, like, for example, we're talking about a pharmaceutical, which is basically a pure isolate of one constituent. That's going to be homogeneous and the same across the board. Like that chemical is that chemical, whatever. But when it comes to herbs, like there's so much variation. There's so many ways it can go right. There's so many ways it can go wrong.
Hmm.
And most of the people that are doing studies have zero understanding of that, have zero. What's the difference between the raw herb versus a tincture versus an extract versus a hot water
Yeah.
extract versus a, whatever, or the mycelium versus the fruiting body
Hmm.
versus, the root of a plant versus the leaf of a plant versus the berry versus all these different things that, once you start getting into herbalism, like I'm sure you're aware of, you realize the different things, like I could say, look, I did this study on ginseng and it showed that it did nothing. It's like, okay, well, number one, what kind? Korean,
Yeah.
American, Chinese? Was
Three
it
different
steam
species.
processed? Was it
Exactly.
fried? Was it,
Yeah.
how old was it? Where was it grown? And then where was it grown? But what side of the mountain was it grown on? When was it harvested? How old was it? Was it
Hmm.
actually the root or was it actually just the leaves or was it the berries? Like so many different things that can just make it so complicated. And then was it just the raw? powder or was it extracted? And if it was extracted, how? And then so it's like, for example, I've made videos kind of like poking fun at this over the years, and then because it can go to both extremes, to where, for example, I made a video a few years ago making fun of people who were saying that lion's mane killed their libido.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, and I was getting all these people emailing me about it and all these like negative comments on YouTube. So I was like, well, what does it stem from? And I found that out was just some guy on Reddit who basically was like a porn addict who was masturbating like 6 times a day and said when he took lion's mane he didn't want to masturbate 6 times a day, so he killed his libido. And it's like there's so much wrong with that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
like hard. Like what's But then the thing is, there was people who would pull up studies and be like, "Oh, but this study said that masturbation increases testosterone, and this study says that lion's mane does this to testosterone." And it's like, but like the way in which those things were orchestrated and put together is so distorted and so removed from anything in any way, shape, or form realistic or balanced. Like, okay, let's take a hyper isolated concentrate ethanol something of lion's mane and then inject it into rat testicles at an insane volume and then be like, look, lion's mane harmed. It's like, dude, that has nothing to do with reality. Like, it's just like even if we just like let's take water, let's take an insane amount of water and inject it into an organ, it's gonna have a negative effect.
Sure,
like,
you'll die.
okay, now water's poisonous.
Yeah.
So I just mean like I just point that out because I'm obviously science is great. It can be amazing. It can be a very useful tool. It can vary. I use it to my benefit within my business and creating my products, but I don't fully go into that.
Yeah.
Because to me, what is the most important thing is that the product of the herb does what it actually is supposed to do, and does it in a way that doesn't isolate. Well, I say that with examples, but in most cases, doesn't isolate one thing over another,
Right.
and then doesn't do it in a way that actually is like really harmful for the body.
Yeah.
Because at least from being in this industry for so long, I see people have the mindset of pharmaceuticals are bad, and I'm like not interested in that whole thing. But then they take that same mindset, and apply it to like herbs. And be like, oh, well, I want a reishi extract that has like 90% beta glucans. It's like, well, then why are you taking herbs? Why don't you just take pharmaceuticals?
Exactly,
like it's, but at the same time, I understand the value of having metrics, things to measure for testing and standardization or whatever. But again, I don't go all the way in because that's not really the full personality of what that herb is about. So that's kind of where some of my philosophy comes in terms of quality. Because really, for me, I take all of my own products. People are like, "Oh, you're just promoting this product because you sell it." I'm like, "No, I sell it because I take it and I like it." And me promoting it is literally just telling you my experience with it and what I've noticed and what I like about it. That's it. And that's all I've been doing since day one. Like it's just basically like that's it. And that's why I don't really sell that many products. There's tons of adaptogens I could sell, tons of products I could sell, but I don't because I don't really have that kind of intimate relationship with them. So that's why, when people do buy from me, they tend to stick around for a while, and have people that have been buying from me for 10 years for that reason, because it's like, they know that it's actually going to be good and do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and your products are very good. I have talked with other people, and I don't. Everybody gets bad reviews occasionally. I get bad reviews. We all do. But anybody who's actually used your products, I have not heard a negative experience. Where I live in the mountains of North Carolina, we have tons of reishi. Reishi is everywhere.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
For me, what I do is I take the mushroom dried and I will do a triple extract using kefir or kombucha. I'll do an alcohol extract, I'll do a water extract, I'll do sort of like a fermented extract. But for most people, that is very impractical. Most people cannot do that in their home. Tell me about how you process well, especially mushrooms, because mushrooms are not as digestible in their raw form as most people think, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you definitely, if you're wild harvesting mushrooms, which I've harvested a ton of reishi in my life, because I lived in Kentucky, so I'd go down to some places in Tennessee for the Smoky Mountains. And I remember one time I went to this old growth trail, and it was just like, I mean, I saw reishi mushrooms like the size of a beach ball.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It was like just everywhere I looked. I documented some of it actually, and I put out a video about it years ago. But eventually, it was just overwhelming. I was like, okay, my bags are full, my camera is full. Like I can't handle anymore. But I mean, even if people can do that, that's amazing and have that connection. And because even with that, you can just make a tea out of it, and it's great. But in terms of products that I, have on a wider scale, and that, basically I've been doing for 12, 15 years at this point. Basically, all the mushrooms are concentrated extracts. So basically, so the ratio, for example, would be about a 10 to 12 to 1. So if you think about, we took 10 kilos of reishi and concentrated that down into 1 kilo of extract powder. So the dosage on all my products is like extremely low. It's like a quarter teaspoon. Add it to hot water, mix it up, and you have an instant uh, tea or elixir or whatever you want to call it. So it kind of just takes out all the work. And also, each of the mushrooms I have has their own kind of process, because for each one they're a little bit unique in terms of their own materials or the effects we're looking for and different things like that. So each product is kind of a conversation. Because personally, I don't really go for like kind of one size fits all kind of cookie cutter approaches. I just don't really live my life that way.
Yeah.
I just see a lot of companies are like that, because over the years, because I've been doing it for so long, people are like, dual extract is best. And then now it's like beta glucans are the only thing that matters, and it's like, yeah, I mean, there's truth to both of those things, but it's also a lot of a lot that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, people are like beta glucans is the only important thing in mushrooms, and it's like reishi, for example, has 300 active constituents, which do hundreds of different things in the body.
Yeah.
So what exactly. So they've taken this amazing herb that does so many things, and they've reduced it down to, well, only these one family of immunomodulating chemicals are important, and that's all we do. And it's like, really? I mean, like I understand why they got there, and probably because that's what their supplier and manufacturer does, so they have to justify it and do all these things. And personally, I just find it a little bit annoying, because I've gotten angry emails from customers like, "Your reishi doesn't have that much beta glucans. Your company sucks. Like I'm never buying from you." And I'm like, well, there's actually a lot more to the situation than just that one family of molecules. For example, like lion's mane. Lion's mane's an amazing mushroom.
Yes, it is.
That has these really unique neurological benefits and benefits for your cognition, benefits for your nervous system that are not found in the beta glucan. Like not at all. Like it's not what they do. So you have people being like, beta glucans are the only thing you need, but beta glucans only do things for your immune system. And we're selling lion's mane that's going to be great for your brain, and it just has beta glucans. It's like, there's some pretty big like logical gaps in that argument. But again, that's just, so for me, that's why I approach each product kind of individually, because my end goal is for that thing to do what we want it to do. Lion's mane, we want to support cognition and have the nervous system regeneration properties, which are incredibly unique. There's very few plants that have those properties. Lion's mane happens to be one of them. Then reishi has the immune modulating effects, but it also has like this calming, soothing, balancing effect for your nervous system, does stuff for your liver, for your heart, for your kidneys, like balances a lot of things in the body that have nothing to do with beta glucans. And then cordyceps, can have those immunological things, but it also has this vitality and more energizing,
very stimulating
kind of a little more like athletic enhancement kind of a thing, which again doesn't come from the beta glucans. And then we have something like chaga, which has just incredible antioxidant capacity. It's like you can just tell from the pigmentation, and just for what it does for the immune system and for inflammation and so many different things in the body. So that's why for each of the mushrooms that I sell, they're all kind of a little bit unique because I'm more results oriented. So each one is kind of like a complicated conversation about how we're doing it, why we're doing it, because of what we're looking for.
And most
But
importantly, you're not just selling mycelium. I mean, so many of these supplements on the market are nothing more than the mycelium in a powdered form.
yeah, and actually, you're only getting half mycelium.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The other half is whatever it was grown on.
right,
Because
exactly.
which you can even see, I've looked at some of the product labels, and it'll be like serving size 1.5 grams, and then the actual mycelium is 750 milligrams, and it's like, well, what's the other 750 milligrams? Oh, it's brown rice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My grandfather died of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. So lion's mane has been well. You probably know exactly why I would be interested in lion's mane. It has been
Yeah,
a very strong interest of mine, and when I have grown it out, it grows on the trees around here, no problem, right?
yeah,
But when I've grown it at home, seeing how it grows into the sawdust or the wood chips, that fruiting body is, well, I mean, it's great, but it's what, 20% of the entire mushroom, and then what you would actually get if you were just harvesting mycelium would be far less.
yeah. So I mean, we can actually talk about mycelium as well because two of my product, like my lion's mane, does contain mycelium, and my cordyceps product is made from mycelium. But again, it's another one of those things where the predominant idea now is, oh, mycelium is garbage, it's trash, I don't want it, which is true in a lot of cases, but it's not the ultimate truth. Because, like for lion's mane, for example, the mycelium contains one family of the nerve growth stimulating stuff, and then the
Hmm.
fruiting body contains another.
Right.
So if you want
Yeah.
the full thing, you actually kind of need both. Um, and then usually mycelium is grown on a grain or some kind of
Yeah.
filler like that, whereas I do everything via liquid fermentation. So that way,
Oh,
when the
cool. Yeah,
mycelium is fully grown,
definitely.
can can get rid of all the liquid, so there's no growth medium left over. What you're getting is the pure mycelium with no growth medium, which is way more expensive to produce, but way more potent of a product. So that's why, I use the mycelium in those products, but obviously without the fillers and without the growth
Exactly.
mediums and without all the stuff that makes it pretty dilute. And of course, they're concentrated extracts on top of all of that. So that's definitely, you know, another kind of caveat. Which again,
Yeah.
for your average consumer, they're not going to do all this work. They're not going to do all this research. They're not going to learn all this stuff. So that's why I'm kind of like, hey, did all the hard work for you, tested hundreds of different products. This is what's actually good because this is what I've been taking for myself, and I have tons of clients that are taking it. So
Yeah.
it's like just make it as quick and as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think definitely we could talk about gynostemma
Yeah.
because I think that's actually one of the best adaptogens. Actually, if not the most, actually I think the best adaptogen that there is.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's one adaptogen that, in my opinion, is the best adaptogen, and I think the best example of what an adaptogen is. But unfortunately, not a lot of people have heard of it, so that's something I've been trying to change in recent
Hmm.
times and trying to promote it more on different podcast media outlets that I've been on. Is the herb is called gynostemma, and basically, I think it's the best adaptogen for a few reasons. The first is it has the most of the saponins. So there's a family of chemicals called
Hmm.
saponins that are kind of like oil and water
Right.
soluble and are able to plug in on a lot of different things in the body. Ginseng has saponins called ginsenosides, reishi, astragalus, like all these different herbs. And at least in terms of a scientific mechanical view, they attribute a lot of this stuff to the saponins. Now, obviously, I don't believe in that 100% because phytochemistry and plants are a little more complicated than
Yeah.
just mechanics, but at least as some metric, gynostemma has well over 100 of these different saponins, whereas really good ginseng might only have like 30.
Yeah.
So, and then actually, gynostemma has some identical saponins to ginseng, like it has some actual ginsenosides. Um, so that's the first thing that I think is really interesting and unique about it. The second is that it's just a tea. It just looks like a rolled green tea. Obviously, it's not tea, so it doesn't have any caffeine of any type.
Hmm.
But it's super accessible and easy to use. You can just make a basic, hot water tea with it and drink it. It tastes actually quite good, and you can do it pretty much any time of day or night. Like if you do it in the morning, it picks you up a little bit. If you do it at night, it calms you down a little bit. You do it when
Yeah.
you're stressed, it kind of levels you out. And it had really noticeable effects, but it's very gentle, which is not usually something that goes together. Sometimes things
Hmm.
are potent and they're aggressive, or
Hmm.
they're very soft and they're not very potent. Whereas this is like just a really unique mixture of all these different things, and it's quite economical and reasonable to use. Like, I sell a 100 gram bag for $27,
Yeah.
and really
Yeah.
all you need for a tea is just like a pinch, and you can make a few cups out of that tea for like a day. You can just get a pinch from like a pinch or two,
Yeah.
and I think it's really one of the best herbs for people to start with if they're new, and if they've been doing it for herbs and stuff for a while, it's also a great thing. I just say for new people because it's easy to use. It's a familiar looking thing because it kind of looks like tea. You make it like tea, and it just has all these benefits. Um, so it's honestly one of my favorite herbs, something that I consume on a really regular basis, and I've gotten quite a few people on in my life, and a lot of people just swear by it, and it's kind of their go-to thing. And even people that aren't really interested in health and aren't interested in herbs at all, they've gotten on it and they just swear by it. Um, and I have a lot of crazy stories from clients, people that I know that have taken it in terms of regulating their blood pressure, uh, helping get rid of asthmatic things and lung things that they
Hmm.
had, and basically improve. Like the guy that I'm thinking of, he was like went to his doctor. His doctor was like, "Yeah, your blood pressure like massively improved. Like, what have you been doing?" He was like, "Nothing. I eat the same, I exercise the same. Like, nothing about my life is different." And then he's telling me the story. And I'm like, "Dude, you've been drinking Guyana stomach for like 3 months." And he was
Yeah.
like, you think it could be that?" I was like, "I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. See,
your
yeah.
asthma got better, your blood pressure balanced out, you're sleeping better. You get up less times in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Like, I think it's probably something to do with it." And he's like, "Oh, I think you're right." Wow, I'm like,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, I know
So I
that
mean,
as a lung herb. I mean, that's one I have in my repertoire, along with
yeah,
Codenopsis dangshin. And I can tell my listeners that um, I had almost died of asthma before I was 5 years old. I went through all the pharmaceuticals. They were very much like methamphetamine. A lot of the stuff that were giving me a take was a precursor of
exactly.
methamphetamine. And I almost had a heart attack when I was in my 20s. And herbs like these are these adaptogens, and I use a few others. I use some Aurelias and what we might call sarsaparilla and such as that. And I use some ginsengs and I use some mushrooms. But yes, that is one of the primary herbs that has made a
Yeah,
huge difference for me.
yeah, it's incredible. It's something that I'm going to be taking probably for the rest of my life
Yeah.
because
How does it
it
help you?
does.
I mean, personal testimony. What do you find with it?
I mean, I find that it just kind of evens me out. If I feel stressed, it just kind of like drops me back down. I just feel normal and calm and kind of just okay. I feel back to center again. I can function from that place rather than being stressed. Um, so I mean, for me, that's definitely one of the biggest things that I've noticed. But I mean, I've been taking it regularly for over a decade, so I mean, I'm sure it's done a lot more. It's just I didn't necessarily have like a chronic, I didn't have like high blood pressure or asthma or something, big like that. That these things got rid of. My stuff was a little more in my nervous system and in my mind. So if something
Hmm.
calms me down and helps me feel less stressed, for me, that's what I go for. That's
Yeah.
because also too over the years, people always ask me like, "What do you do for energy?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Like, I don't need more energy. I
Right.
need to like mellow out and be grounded."
Yeah, I think a
Um,
lot of people make that mistake. They think they need more of a stimulant when what they really need is more rest, more recovery. Well, I mean, that brings me to mind astragalus. That's one of my absolute favorites. Um, what is the Latin name for that? Something somnifera. I mean, the Latin name means it can actually put you to sleep, you know, if you take a lot of it. And I think, like I said, adaptogens help people deal with stress. And we don't always need like a caffeine pick me up. We don't actually
Yeah,
always need a sugar high. What we really need is just to be able to deal with what's going. And it has so much to do with the pituitary gland.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I put out a video recently called "The Boring Truth" about how I stayed healthy during the pandemic,
Hmm.
and I've put out many videos kind of like that over the years. And basically, my idea is that, like, for one, the key to having more energy is actually feeling more calm and
Yep.
centered.
Yep.
The key to being more productive is being more calm. Like, the solution to so many different problems that people have is actually just being calm and like neutral, being
Yes.
able to be in the neutral position, uh,
Yes. Yes.
which is, that's really hard to come by, and it's such a basic, obvious thing, but it's, our world is so polarized right now and
Hmm.
so divided, and everything's so egregiously, stimulatory.
Yep.
Just everything, food's getting more potent, like news cycle, the media. I even see it in the natural health field, just like people just getting more and more crazy and
Yep.
more extreme in what they're doing and combining all of these like, psychedelics and then combining it with these tonic herbs, combining it with
Yes.
coffee,
Yes.
combining it with cacao, combining it with intermittent
That's
fasting
not
and
going
doing
to
cold
end well.
plunges and Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah.
And just like stacking all of these
Yeah.
things. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
that's just gonna probably not end up in a
That's
in a
not going to
positive
end well.
place.
You are correct.
Yeah,
And I should say, I misspoke. I said astragalus. I meant ashwagandha. Ashwagandha
yeah,
is
yeah,
Withania somnifera or somnifera, and
yeah,
it is a very relaxing herb. It helps people deal with emotional stress. But you are
yeah,
absolutely right. You take stimulative herbs, especially people are doing a lot of psilocybin these days and such. You put them
yeah,
with relaxing herbs. You start doing the Wim Hof kind of thing.
yeah.
That's not going to end well.
It's just stimulation is all at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
just how do we keep ramping up the threshold? And my thing is, how do we take the threshold down so that we get a lot from very little? Rather than how can I take a lot to feel something, it's like how can I chill out enough so that I can take just the
Right.
tiniest amount and get the effect. To me, like that's much more sustainable. That makes a lot more sense. And I also, for just for reference, I've done all of that extreme stuff. I
Sure.
did it.
Yeah.
that was my early 20s. I went to the extremes. I maxed it out,
Yep.
and it just burns out your adrenals and depletes your
It
body. It's
does.
not.
Yes. I did Qigong long before Wim Hof. I mean, not before him, but my teachers were, Shaolin and, hardcore Taoist kind of guys. And we
Yeah,
did the really extreme stuff. And yes, yes, you will find a clarity of mind with those breathing techniques, with the extreme cold, with the various things you're dealing with. But yes, your body can only go so far. You will hit, and a lot of Chinese herbalism is very much, well, I wouldn't say Chinese herbalism so much as like the old-fashioned Shaolin stuff, the old formulas that they would give you to kind of get through the hard parts. There's going to be a big
yeah,
crash after that. There's going to be a big, not only physical, but emotional and psychological crash after that because you can only go so far.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, people all they're really doing and feeling is stimulating their fight or flight response.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
which to me is kind of funny because it's like they're saying they're doing this thing which is very spiritual, but the actual mechanism they're working with is the most primitive
Right.
mechanism that like all
Yeah.
mammals have. So I'm like, wait, there's a pretty massive contradiction. Like you're saying the lowest mammalian, almost reptilian part of your nervous system is somehow the most spiritual evolved part of it.
Right.
I'm like, surely that's not like that just makes zero sense to me, but that's just I mean, people feel something so they think this must be the right thing. And I'm kinda like
Yes.
actually we just maybe need to chill out and kinda
Yeah.
lower our threshold.
I often
So
say, okay, I won't mention any names. There's some great herbalists out there.
sure,
A lot of these
sure,
guys have had, we'll say they've had addictions to stimulants in the past.
yeah,
You'll probably come to your mind. And it's like, okay, so you're using all these herbs now to basically substitute for cocaine. I mean, is that really the healthiest thing for your body? I mean, honestly, or for your mind or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, healing and dealing with issues can be a bit complicated, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe what they're doing now is maybe a step in the right
Sure.
direction. Is it addressing the root cause?
No.
Probably not, but
Yeah.
that's just,
And the same
at
with
least in he,
psychedelics. I mean,
yeah,
I have no problem with people that, find what they need in that realm, but, maybe some of the psychedelics aren't doing you as much good as you think they might be. Yeah, I've lost friends. I've had friends that went on that path and never came back. So when I
same
warn
here.
people, it's not because of a bias toward a plant or a mushroom. It's because I don't want you to end up like, you know, some of those guys. I mean, honest, kind-hearted, empathetic, sympathetic people who went out
Yep,
and never came back, and they're just a shell of themselves. Uh, yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Seen that time and time again as well.
yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I also did it, in my early 20s,
Sure,
so
sure. Uh,
I'm familiar with where it goes. Yeah, so, just going back to what we were talking about earlier with gynostemma, that's kind of why I think it's one of the best herbs because it is more gentle and it kind of just maybe can help start to bring people down
yep,
from these places of reactivity and the places of
yep.
stress. Because honestly, the thing is like stress is kind of like such a trivial term at this point. It's like it almost doesn't even mean anything because it's just used so widely. But the thing is like it's almost like stress and inflammation are obviously really related, right?
Certainly, certainly. Yes.
But it's like if you're really stressed, you're probably inflamed. If you're
Yep.
really inflamed, you're probably stressed.
Yes.
It's also kind of like the position you're operating your life from and the place you're making decisions from. So
Mm-hmm.
that in all likelihood, you're probably not going to make great decisions. So your stress is going to make you make stress out decisions, and those stressed out decisions are probably going to lead to more stressful situations, which make you more stressed. And it basically just creates this feedback
Yes.
loop, which that can be, I know people, that's their whole life.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
And,
No. Yeah. I get
so I mean,
questions every day from people saying, I
yeah,
have anxiety, I have this, and I have that, and it's like, have you looked at your diet?
yeah,
What's your
I mean,
sleep pattern like? Let's start with, do you do a little exercise? Do you take a walk? Are you a religious person? Do you have a spiritual side of your life?
yeah,
Yeah, I could give you some herbs, but you know what? Maybe you just want a little borage in your salad, Maybe you want
yeah,
a nice glass of wine and some ashwagandha. Maybe you don't need something that's going to hit you in the head with like a hammer, or
exactly.
or give you, I don't want to give you a Fedra. I don't want to give you Ma Huang. You know,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But
absolutely.
I think that really is the heart of the adaptogenic herbs. They help us deal. They help manage that stress.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best tools in combination with being willing to change your lifestyle, to change your approach to life. Because to me, that's obviously where the rubber hits the road. I mean, if you're not willing to change anything, then herbs and things can really only take you so far.
Yeah, it's going to be a band-aid if you don't change your life, if you
Yeah,
don't change your mindset, if you don't change the way you think and the way you eat.
yeah.
Yeah,
But what I've seen over the years and experienced for myself personally is taking them help me make those changes
yeah,
much more easily.
yeah.
Because, like for example,
It lowers the fear, right? I mean, it lowers
yeah,
the resistance and fear to confront those things.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the major, just really what's where the rubber hits the road at the end of the day is, you know, the rhythms in which you're waking up and going to sleep, and you're eating, and you're excreting, and you're relating to other people, and you're moving your body, and you're breathing, like these basic human rhythms that we all have.
Yep.
that really determine how we actually feel. And so to me, it's like, yeah, herbs are a tool and a really amazing tool in this bigger picture. Because that's, I mean, I could take all the reishi in the world, but if all of my relationships are stressful
Yep.
and like anger inducing, then the reishi isn't going to really take me that far. And I've made so many videos over the years. People will ask me like, "Oh, what should I take? What should I do? I want to do like this medicine journey and go study with this shaman and do this therapy." And they do all these like complicated things, and I'm like, "Well, what time do you go to bed normally?"
Right.
And they're like, "Well, I usually go to bed at 2 to 4 and usually get
Mm-hmm.
up around 10 or 11. Okay, what do you eat for breakfast?" I usually don't eat breakfast. I
Or
might eat a
sugar
little something.
cereal. Yeah, sugary cereal.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, well, maybe you don't need this complicated, expensive journey to fix your whatever anxiety. Maybe you just need to go to bed at a regular time, wake up at a regular time, eat breakfast, and like go for a walk, and just give your body at least this basic rhythm, and then it can actually start self-correcting. Because maybe what you're experiencing as anxiety is actually just like blood sugar because you're hungry, or because your system's confused because your sleep is all messed up. It's not actually like this psycho-emotional, spiritual, complicated thing that you have to, spend a decade in therapy to resolve. Maybe you just need to like regulate these basic rhythms, and then other things can fall into place. So
I agree 100%. And I mean, it's so good. You know, Brandon, you're a common sense guy, Midwest common sense, connection
right.
to the Appalachians where I live. Um, you really laid it out in a way I think people can understand, and I think they'll understand why I have so much confidence in your company because it's not a bunch of hype and it's not a bunch of woohoo and all that. You're
Right.
you're you're just a down to earth, solid guy. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I know you have things you have to do, and you're on the West
Absolutely.
Coast, so you have several more hours to do things than I do. But
Exactly.
why don't you just give me a rundown of all your websites and everything, all your URLs, and how people can find you and how they can buy your products. And I know they're going to want to check out those YouTube videos because my whole show is really about common sense herbalism, and you've just given us
Yeah.
a big dose of common sense. So take it and run, brother, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity for to come on here and
Hey,
have an
anytime,
interesting
anytime.
conversation. Basically, yeah, it's quite simple. People can find everything I've talked about here on my website, hyperionherbs.com. So HYPERIONHERBS.com. I'm sure you'll link that
Oh yeah.
wherever relevant. And then my YouTube channel is Hyperion TV. So HYPERION TV.com. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got. That's where people can find me. And if people hear anything they want to chat more about, send me an email to the website or questions, recommendations, whatever. I'm always there, and I do all of my own customer service. I do all of my own emails and stuff. So I'm happy to answer questions or give referrals or assist people however I can. And yeah, that's where people can find me.
All right. And I am sure they will. I am sure they will. Hey, when he says that's all I got, it's like it's a little bit. It's not a little bit. This guy is, he's the guy when it comes to adaptogens. Let me tell you. I followed him for I don't know what, 10 years now? What'd you say? You started 2018, so well, you went with your
No,
one
I mean
thing.
I started YouTube in 2009.
Yeah, 2009. So yeah, we're getting pretty close to uh wow. Has it been that long?
I
Seriously?
know it's hard to believe.
We're gonna have to start going back to some of those Chinese formulas for longevity and keeping our hair dark, right? All right. This has been great, and I would like to invite you back anytime. Anytime you want to talk about herbs, you got a new product coming out, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
You drop me a line, and you're good to go. So,
Absolutely. Really
um,
appreciate that.
oh, absolutely. No, this has been my pleasure.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.